Right now, as you watch this, you are completely convinced that you can see the world around you clearly. You feel like your eyes are open, taking in everything, giving you an accurate and complete picture of reality. The room you are in, the screen in front of you, the objects in your peripheral vision, all of it feels present, clear, and real. And that feeling of clarity, that absolute confidence that what you are seeing is an accurate representation of what is actually there, is almost entirely an illusion. Your eyes are not cameras. They do not capture a complete, faithful image of the world and send it to your brain for passive viewing. What they actually do is far stranger, far more selective, and far more creative than that. Your visual system is constantly making decisions about what to show you and what to hide, what to fill in and what to invent, what to prioritize and what to discard. The picture of the world you are experiencing right now is not a recording of reality. It is a construction, an edited, filtered, partially fabricated version of what is out there, assembled by a brain that is working very hard to give you something functional while hiding all the gaps and limitations it is quietly managing behind the scenes. The eyes are lying to you, not because something is wrong with them, but because lying, or more precisely, creative editing, is exactly what they were built to do. And once you understand how they do it, you will never look at anything quite the same way again. Subscribe to Freud Mind, and let us look at what you are actually seeing. Start with the most fundamental limitation of human vision, because most people have no idea it exists. Your eyes have a region of genuinely sharp, detailed vision called the fovea, a small central area of the retina packed with cone cells that are capable of fine detail processing. The fovea covers roughly 2 degrees of your total visual field. 2 degrees. That is approximately the width of your thumbnail held at arm's length. Everything outside that tiny central zone is not seen in nearly the same detail. Your peripheral vision, which feels rich and present and full, is actually surprisingly low resolution. The further you get from the center of your visual field, the less detail your retina is actually capturing. Colors become less accurate, fine details disappear. The sense of a complete, high-resolution visual world surrounding you on all sides is not coming from your eyes. It is coming from your brain, which is taking the limited information your eyes actually collect and constructing a convincing simulation of a complete scene. Try this right now. Extend your arm and hold your thumb up. Focus on your thumb. Now, without moving your eyes, pay attention to the objects at the far edges of your vision. The walls, the corners, the things sitting at the periphery of the room. Notice how vague they are. Notice how you cannot really make out detail without shifting your gaze. That blur is the actual raw input your eyes are providing for most of your visual field. Your brain is normally hiding this from your conscious experience by smoothing it over, filling it in with what it expects to be there, and creating the convincing impression that your whole visual world is sharp and detailed. Your eyes are moving constantly. Small, rapid movements called saccades, 3 to 4 times per second, jumping from point to gather the detailed information the fovea can actually capture. Your brain then stitches these snapshots together into what feels like a continuous, seamless, fully detailed visual experience. None of that stitching is something you are aware of. The seams are invisible. The construction process is completely hidden. What you experience is the finished product, a smooth, complete, apparently high-resolution picture of the world, with no indication of how much work went into making it look that way. Now, the blind spot. This is the one that tends to genuinely unsettle people when they actually experience it, because it reveals in a very direct way that the brain is not just enhancing your vision, it is actively fabricating parts of it. At the back of your eye, the optic nerve, the cable that carries visual information from the retina to the brain, has to exit the eye somewhere. The point where it exits has no photoreceptors, no rods, no cones, no light-detecting cells of any kind. It is a gap in the retina, a place where your eye is literally blind, and it exists in every human eye, in roughly the same location in everyone. This means there is a hole in your visual field, right now. A region of complete visual absence that exists in both of your eyes. You should be experiencing a black spot, or a gap, or at minimum some kind of visual disruption somewhere in your vision. But you are not, and the reason you are not is that your brain is painting over it, filling in the missing region with whatever surrounds it, the color, the texture, the pattern, and presenting you with a seamless visual field that gives no indication of the absence beneath. There is a hole in your vision right now, and your brain is hiding it from you. The visual information simply does not exist for that region, and your brain is inventing the content to fill the gap. You can find your blind spot with a simple test. There are dozens of them online. And when you do, when you see an object disappear and then reappear as you move it across your visual field, the gap becomes briefly visible. But the moment you stop looking for it, your brain quietly covers it over again and gets back to presenting you with the seamless version. The brain does this because gaps are dangerous. A visual system that presented you with a hole in your vision would constantly draw your attention to the missing information, which would interfere with function. So instead, the brain uses the surrounding information to make a reasonable guess about what should be in the gap and fills it in automatically. The guess is almost always good enough that you never notice. But it is still a guess. Your brain is literally inventing part of what you see. Colors do not exist. This one sounds like a philosophical provocation, but it is actually a precise description of what is happening in your visual system. And understanding it properly changes something fundamental about how you think about perception. The physical world does not contain color. What the physical world contains is electromagnetic radiation, light, traveling at different wavelengths. Those wavelengths themselves have no color. They are not blue or red or green. They are simply different frequencies of energy, in the same way that a low sound and a high sound are both just air pressure waves at different frequencies. Neither one is inherently high or low in any subjective sense until a brain processes them. What happens in your visual system is this. Light enters your eye and hits the cone cells in your retina. You have 3 types of cones, each sensitive to a different range of wavelengths. One type responds most strongly to long wavelengths, one to medium wavelengths, one to short wavelengths. These 3 cone types produce electrical signals when activated. Those signals travel to the brain, where they are compared, processed, and interpreted. The brain takes the pattern of activation across the 3 cone types and assigns a color experience to it. The color, the subjective experience of redness or blueness or green, is generated entirely within the brain. It does not exist in the light. It does not exist in the objects you are looking at. It exists in the processing. Your brain invented the color you call blue, not in a loose metaphorical sense, in the literal sense that blue is a neural construct, a brain-generated experience assigned to a particular range of electromagnetic wavelengths. The wavelengths are real. The blue is something your brain made up as a way of representing them. Different species with different numbers and types of cone cells experience color completely differently. Some animals see wavelengths in the ultraviolet range that are invisible to humans, and the colors they experience in response to those wavelengths have no equivalent in human experience. There is no word for them because no human has ever seen them. Their brain invents different colors than yours does, in response to the same physical world. There's another layer to the visual lie that is subtler than the blind spot or the color construction, and it operates at the level of time. Your brain is always slightly behind reality. Not by much, we are talking about milliseconds, fractions of a second, but behind nonetheless. Light enters your eyes, and the signal has to travel through the optic nerve to the visual processing areas of the brain, where it goes through multiple stages of interpretation before becoming conscious experience. This process takes time. The estimate varies by researcher and by the complexity of what is being processed, but the general figure is somewhere in the range of 80 to 100 milliseconds between the light hitting your retina and you consciously seeing what it represents. Roughly a tenth of a second. In normal daily life, this delay is not a problem. A tenth of a second is not long enough to cause significant issues with most activities. But it creates a genuinely interesting situation. You are technically always seeing the past. The world you are consciously experiencing right now is the world as it was a fraction of a second ago, not the world as it is at this exact moment. Every sensation you have of the present is already slightly historical by the time it reaches consciousness. The brain solves this problem through prediction, rather than just accepting that it is always slightly behind and trying to function with dated information. The brain uses the patterns of what has been happening to predict what is happening right now and what will happen in the immediate next moment. The visual experience you are having is not just a slightly delayed recording. It is a blend of delayed sensory input and active prediction about what should be happening based on everything the brain knows about how the world works. The prediction is so good, so well calibrated by experience, that you cannot tell the difference between the perception and the prediction. It all feels like the same, continuous present moment. This is why catching a fast-moving ball is possible at all. Your visual system is not fast enough to track the ball purely through real-time processing. You are predicting its trajectory based on physics your brain has internalized through experience, and that prediction is what guides your hand to the right place. When the prediction fails, when something moves unexpectedly in a way your brain could not anticipate, you miss. Not because your reaction time was too slow, but because the prediction system got it wrong. The brain does not just fill in the blind spot. It fills in gaps everywhere, constantly, using expectation and pattern to construct a coherent experience from incomplete information. This automatic gap filling is one of the most extensively demonstrated phenomena in perceptual psychology, and the examples of it are genuinely striking. Change blindness is one of the most famous demonstrations. In classic experiments, participants watch a video or look at a scene, and a significant change is made during a brief interruption. A cut in the video, a moment when someone walks between the viewer and the scene, or even just a blink. The change can be dramatic, a person's shirt changing color, a large object appearing or disappearing, the central character in a scene being replaced by a different person. And participants frequently do not notice, not because they are inattentive or unintelligent, but because the brain is not taking in the whole scene with equal attention and detail. It is sampling, filling in, predicting. And when the change happens in a region that was not being actively attended to, the brain fills in the changed version with what it remembers from before and reports no difference. Inattentional blindness is related but distinct. It describes the failure to notice something completely unexpected that appears in plain sight while you're focused on something else. The most famous demonstration is the gorilla experiment, in which participants are asked to count basketball passes between players wearing white shirts and completely fail to notice a person in a gorilla costume walking through the scene, stopping in the middle and walking out. It is not a subtle thing. The gorilla is clearly visible. But because the brain's attention is directed at a specific task, things outside that attentional spotlight are not processed for conscious awareness. They do not make it through the filter. They are seen by the eyes and not registered by the conscious mind. This is also why you can spend 10 minutes looking for your phone while it is in your hand, or search a room for your keys and look directly at them without seeing them. You are not looking for keys in the abstract. You are running a search pattern based on expectation, and when the object does not appear in the expected form or location, the brain skips over it. The eyes passed over the keys. The brain did not flag them as what you were looking for because the context or position was unexpected. The reason the brain operates this way, filtering, editing, predicting, filling in, is not a design flaw. It is an energy management strategy, and understanding why reveals something important about what vision is actually for. Your brain accounts for roughly 2% of your body weight and uses approximately 20% of your total energy. It is metabolically expensive in a way that makes efficiency a genuine biological priority. If the brain attempted to fully process every signal that enters the visual system, and the eyes send somewhere in the region of 10 million bits of information per second, the energy cost would be enormous. More than the brain can reasonably sustain while also running everything else the body needs to do. So the brain does not process everything. It processes what matters. It uses previous experience, current goals, and predictions about what is likely to be relevant to create a filtered, prioritized version of the visual input. Things that are moving get attention. Movement often signals either threat or opportunity. Faces get attention. Other humans are among the most important things in a social species environment. Patterns get attention. Patterns often indicate meaningful structure. Unexpected things get attention. Surprises need to be evaluated for potential significance. Everything else gets processed at a lower level of detail or not consciously processed at all. The stable background of a familiar room, the texture of the floor you walk on every day, the specific arrangement of objects on a desk you have looked at 1,000 times. These are not absent from your visual field. The light is entering your eyes and producing signals, but the brain has filed them as known, as non-novel, as not requiring full processing, and is running its stored model of those things rather than processing the live input in detail. You are not seeing the room. You are seeing your brain's remembered model of the room, updated only where something has changed or where your attention is directed. This is not a failure of perception. It is exactly how perception is supposed to work. You are not seeing reality. You are seeing what is important enough to survive. The evolutionary framework for all of this makes the picture complete. Human vision was not shaped by natural selection to be accurate. It was shaped to be useful specifically in the environment and context that human ancestors faced over hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. The visual priorities that got built into the human brain reflect the priorities of survival. Movement detection is immediate and nearly impossible to suppress. Something moving at the edge of your vision captures your attention reflexively, without any conscious decision. This is the prey detection and predator avoidance system at work, still running in a world where there are no predators lurking in the bushes but activating every time something moves in your peripheral vision. Face detection is highly automated. You see faces in clouds, in wood grain, in the front of cars, in abstract patterns. This is the social cognition system running at full sensitivity, because in a species that depends on social cooperation for survival, missing a face is costly. Pattern recognition, threat detection, the ability to track moving objects, the automatic prioritization of novel stimuli. These are all visual capabilities that were essential for survival in a world of physical threats and opportunities. Precise, accurate, complete, objective representation of reality was never on the list of requirements. It was not what natural selection was working toward. A visual system that told you everything that was there with complete accuracy would be overwhelmed, computationally expensive, and full of information you do not need. A visual system that tells you what you need to act effectively is efficient, fast, and perfectly functional for the purpose it was designed to serve. Your eyes were not built to tell the truth. They were built to keep you alive. And so here is where it all lands. If your brain showed you reality exactly as it is, every detail, every wavelength, every gap and limitation in your visual system, every millisecond of delay, every piece of missing information, you would be overwhelmed within seconds. The sheer volume of unprocessed reality would be unusable. There would be no coherent picture, no stable world, no ability to act effectively on what you are seeing. So instead, the brain edits. It takes the limited, patchy, slightly delayed input from your eyes and constructs something better than the raw data. It fills in the blind spot. It invents colors. It predicts the present moment from the recent past. It smooths over the gaps between eye movements. It filters out the overwhelming majority of visual information and gives you back a prioritized, coherent, stable-feeling experience that you can actually use. The result is not reality, but it is something more useful than reality. A functional model of reality, tailored to your needs and your history and your expectations. Designed to let you navigate the world without being paralyzed by everything your visual system cannot quite capture. Your eyes are not broken. Your brain is not malfunctioning. The lies are the feature, not the bug. Every edit, every invention, every piece of gap-filling your visual system performs is the result of hundreds of thousands of years of optimization toward a single goal, keeping you functional in a complex, fast-moving, demanding world. The eyes do not lie because something went wrong. They lie because that is the only way humans can function. And now that you know that, see if you can catch your brain in the act. Like and subscribe to Freud Mind for more.